I don't understand how somebody could hurt innocent children. I just don't get that. What did those poor babies do to you? That's the hard part.
There's 20 parents that were just told that their children are dead.
It's a tragedy. It's a tragic scene.
It is a tragedy for the nation. A gunman opened fire in a Connecticut kindergarten.
Beautiful little kids between the ages of 5 and 10 years old.
More than 24 people are dead. The gunman's motive is still unknown. CBS News correspondents are on the scene covering the investigation of one of the worst school shootings in U.S. history.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley reporting tonight from Newtown, Connecticut.
Good evening. The bodies of most of the children killed this morning remain inside Sandy Hook Elementary School tonight, along with the bodies of 6 adults and the gunman himself. The firehouse behind me, decorated for Christmas, is where terrorized parents came to find out whether their children were among the living or the dead. Some of the victims were as young as 5 years old. President Obama said today what everyone is thinking. We have been through this too many times. Sandy Hook is a K-4 elementary school with about 700 students.
Somebody came into the room and shot a teacher. That's all I know. Sorry.
Parents rushed to the school after getting robocalls that there had been a shooting. At 9:30 this morning, police say a gunman identified as 20-year-old Adam Lanza opened fire in a kindergarten classroom where his mother was the teacher. Some of her students were among the 20 children killed. In all, 26 people were killed at the school, including the school principal. The police say the gunman then took his own life. And later, his mother was found dead in her home a few miles away. The motive for the shootings is not known. The investigation is just beginning, but the president said one thing is certain.
And we're going to have to come together and take meaningful action to prevent more tragedies like this, regardless of the politics.
We have a team of CBS News correspondents and producers on this still developing story. First, Jim Axelrod here in Newtown on how it all began.
The school day had just started when the first calls came into police.
6-7 Sandy Hook School. Callers indicating she thinks there's someone shooting in the building.
8-year-old Bear Nikichik had turned in his third-grade classroom's attendance list seconds before.
I saw some of the bullets going past the hall that I was right next to, and then a teacher pulled me into her classroom.
Children described the sound as pans falling. One heard a scream over the intercom. Teachers locked the classroom and crowded their students into corners, away from doors and windows.
I was like afraid when we had to go to our cubbies.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, and every door in the building, except for the ones in the hallway, had to close. And we had to lock our doors so the animal couldn't get in.
Some children hid in closets. Police say the shooting rampage was restricted to 2 rooms.
At all units, the individual that I have on the phone is continuing to hear what he believes to be gunfire.
As SWAT teams surrounded the school, state troopers moved students to safety. Some children were told to close their eyes to protect them from seeing the carnage.
Newtown police, immediately upon arrival, entered the school and began a complete active shooter search of the building. That included checking every door, every crack, every crevice, every portion of that school.
Inside, they found the gunman, dead from a self-inflicted wound. Outside, parents were desperate for information.
They didn't tell us anything. Only what she knows, which I don't know if that's, accurate. So we don't have any information. I don't know.
Parents cradled their children to protect them from the December cold and the shock of the shooting. Some were directed to the firehouse to be reunited with their children. Others were pulled aside to a separate room. Maureen Cairns is a nurse.
All I can say is that one of the cops said it's, the worst thing he'd ever seen in his entire career. But it was when they told the parents, all these parents were waiting for their children to come out. They thought that they were, still alive. There's 20 parents that were just told that their children are dead. It was awful.
One 6-year-old boy who was in a classroom when the gunman came in and shot the teacher has told his father that as all of this was unfolding at this elementary school down the road, the shooter, Scott, never said a word.
Jim, thank you. Police tell us, as Jim said, that that silent man was the son of one of the teachers. Justice correspondent Bob Orr has been talking to his sources about what we know about him so far. Bob?
Well, Scott, police tell us that it's clear the gunman was on a mission to kill as many people as possible. He took at least 3 guns, multiple magazines of ammunition to target a defenseless elementary school and children as young as 5. Police say 20-year-old Adam Lanza was armed for mass murder when he attacked a target he knew very well. Lanza, whose mother was a teacher at Sandy Hill Elementary, arrived in the school parking lot driving his mother's black Honda. He was carrying 2 lethal semi-automatic handguns, a Sig Sauer, the type of gun carried by Secret Service agents, and a Glock 9mm, a model used by many police officers and federal agents across the United States. Officials say Lanza headed directly for a specific section of the school and opened fire, killing students in 2 classrooms. It is not known how many rounds he fired, but both guns are capable of carrying high-capacity extended clips, which can hold up to 30 rounds. Police Lieutenant Paul Vance said evidence teams are still working through the horrible scene.
We will be here through the night, certainly through the weekend, and we're not even putting a time stamp on this as to when we will complete this project.
Sources say Lanza died of a self-inflicted gunshot inside the school, but investigators suspect he may have intended to carry out a broader attack. A third gun, a .223 assault rifle, was found outside the school in the back of his mother's car. It's similar to the type of gun used in the shooting on Tuesday at a mall outside of Portland, Oregon. Now, Lanza's older brother, Ryan, is still being questioned by police who want to know what he might have known about that attack. Sources say at this point, and they emphasize at this point, he's not a suspect. Investigators say they now believe, though, the killing spree actually began at the home that Adam Lanza shared with his mother, who, as we've told you, was a kindergarten teacher at Sandy Hill, because, Scott, she was found dead in the home.
Bob, thank you. CBS News senior correspondent John Miller is a former assistant director of the FBI, and John has been talking to his law enforcement sources today. John, there have now been 2 deadly shootings this week, the other at a shopping mall in Oregon earlier, including the one there. What have we learned from them this week?
Well, this is the kind of thing, Scott, that always puts the profilers who study the offender characteristics of these shooters on alert. What they're worried about is what they call the Werther effect. It is a copycat mechanism, and they say their studies show it's particularly powerful effect on adolescents. So in a case where you'll see someone commit suicide in a high school, it's not unusual to see 2 or 3 more in a cycle like that. But they also say in this active shooter scenario that happens. So what they believe is it's entirely possible that the Oregon incident that most of us found disturbing and troubling, an individual like this might have found that challenging to not just imitate it, but to go forward with his plan. They also observed that the fact that he killed his mother and then went about the other crimes, we believe he killed his mother at the house, shows that this was planned out from the beginning, so that this was a calculated crime. We tend to think of these offenders as being crazy. It doesn't mean they're not disturbed, but they are rational enough to act out these plans, even under tremendous pressure and during the chaos of their own actions, to stick with that plan.
John, thank you. One of the parents who rushed to the school is Richard Wilford. When he arrived there, the police told him to come to this fire station to see if he could find his 7-year-old son, Richie, among the survivors. We spoke to Wilford a short time ago.
We jumped out of the car. We went towards, the school as close as we could get. My wife interfaced with a police officer who told us that the evacuated kids were in the Sandy Hook Fire Department and that we could go there to rendezvous with them. We immediately went in. I want to say we located Richie in about 2 minutes. Once we came in, we looked around. There he was. What an amazing moment after going through the sheer terror of that, to see my son alive.
What was that moment like when you spotted him in the firehouse?
To try to describe it with words would probably be inadequate. However, I would probably use words like joy, elation, relief. until you've been through it, it's perhaps hard to explain, but it was an amazing moment. I hugged him. It was just great.
What was that moment like when you were turned away from the school and sent to the firehouse? You were essentially being sent to find out whether your son had survived. You didn't know.
That is correct. The terror does not stop until you reunite with your child. Period. There's nothing. It doesn't matter where they point me to. Until I see my child, it's still sheer terror until that moment.
You are one of the luckiest people in this town.
I would say so. Absolutely. Absolutely blessed to have what tonight, unfortunately, some people are not enjoying what I have right now, and that's painful because they're members of my community, and I can't imagine what their pain is like today.
The trauma unit at the hospital in Danbury, Connecticut, about 10 miles away, was immediately mobilized. 3 victims were taken there, and the doctors were ready to help more, but no more wounded came. Jeff Glore is at the hospital.
Scott, 2 of the children who were taken here died. It's our understanding that 1 patient is still being treated tonight. When this happened, they had 4 trauma teams ready, but as you mentioned, one of the most heartbreaking realizations here is that the hospital realized most of the victims would never even leave the school. We spoke with Dr. John Murphy, who was coordinating coverage this morning.
Well, I was in the emergency room when we got the call that there would not be any more victims coming. And that was a devastating call to get. And the room fell silent when we shared the news. And there was a moment of deep grief, recognizing what that meant.
That most of the victims couldn't be saved.
That's correct.
Scott, this is the main hospital in a small town, so they're not only dealing with the fact that they were treating these victims, but that many hospital employees knew the families and knew some of the children involved. The hospital has been offering counseling to both employees and families all day.
Jeff, thank you. President Obama addressed the nation, and at one point he was overcome by the thought of the loss of victims so young. Major Garrett is at the White House for us tonight. Major?
Scott, the grim news of this shooting began rippling through the White House about 10:30 a.m. when the president first learned of the tragedy. The Oval Office briefing from Homeland Security Advisor John Brennan alerted the president to the magnitude and the horror of the details to come. About 5 hours later, when the president appeared in the briefing room, the characteristic bounce in his step was gone, and the nation learned this tragedy hit the president like no other.
I know there's not a parent in America who doesn't feel the same overwhelming grief that I do. The majority of those who died today were children. Beautiful little kids between the ages of 5 and 10 years old. They had their entire lives ahead of them. Birthdays, graduations, weddings, kids of their own. Among the fallen were also teachers, men and women who devoted their lives to helping our children fulfill their dreams. So our hearts are broken today.
The president also said the nation has endured too many of these mass shootings, and for the first time in his presidency, he said Washington must take meaningful action to prevent similar atrocities. As the president spoke, his press secretary Jay Carney and White House Deputy Chief of Staff Alyssa Mastromonaco sat feet away, clutching each other's hands, tears welling in their eyes.
Major, thank you. We'll be hearing from more of the parents here in Newtown, Connecticut, when the CBS Evening News continues. When parents here in Newtown received that robocall this morning about a school shooting, the recording told them not to come to the school. Of course, everyone did. Michelle Miller met some of them today.
We just ran to the fire station, and we didn't really even know what we were finding at the fire station, if it was children, if it was adults telling us when we could get our children.
Melissa Makeris was among hundreds of parents desperate to find their children.
And we went in, and you just saw lots and lots of kids and crying and parents, and you just search for your child's teacher, for your child's face. And I heard mommy, mommy, and there he was, sitting there waiting for us.
Makeris' 10-year-old son, Philip, was in the school gym when the shooting began.
My son says that those teachers gathered them in a corner and kept them safe.
So the teachers are the heroes of today?
Absolutely. They did. I was a teacher before I became a mom, and you always wonder, are you going to do what you need to do to protect your kids? And those teachers did. Philip describes being pushed in a corner, and they kept them safe there. And when the police officers came in and said, run to the fire station, they ran. And that school should be very proud. That principal would be very proud.
Makeris says her son doesn't understand what happened today, and she's not ready to tell him. Not yet. It's why she didn't want us to show him on camera.
We got a miracle. My little boy is okay. And there's a lot of parents tonight that have not gotten that miracle.
What would you say to parents in this community who lost their children?
There are no words. There are no words. We have our children and want to raise them and love them, and we're not equipped for this. You don't lose your children. And I get to put my kids to bed tonight, and I'm very lucky.
Melissa Makeris told us she's taking her son and the rest of her family, and she's leaving town for the weekend, if not for longer. And Scott, there were so many people whose children didn't even go to this school who are still reeling. We saw a woman as she watched her daughter get off the bus, she grabbed her, she hyperventilated, she started crying. And that is the test. They say this used to be a place where they felt their kids were safe, but tonight they say Newtown will never be the same.
Thanks, Michelle. A lot of parents will put their children to bed with a tear in their eye tonight. What happened today seems beyond imagination, and yet the police do extensive training for just this kind of thing. We'll have a story in just a moment. The horror here in Newtown, Connecticut brought back memories of the 1999 Columbine shootings in Colorado. Then 2 students killed 12 schoolmates and a teacher. That attack forced police to rethink their response to school shootings. And we asked Wyatt Andrews to tell us how those police tactics have changed.
When the police first arrived at the Sandy Hook school, their standing orders were, without hesitation, to go straight inside and confront the gunman. Connecticut State Police Lieutenant Paul Vance.
Newtown police, immediately upon arrival, entered the school and began a complete active shooter search of the building. That included checking every door, every crack, every crevice, every portion of that school.
That phrase, begin active shooter, is a tactic now employed by almost every police agency in America, and it means do not wait. It's a reaction to the Columbine massacre 13 years ago, when dozens of officers waited 46 minutes outside as the shooting continued and at least one victim bled to death. Captain Drew Tracy, then with the Montgomery County Police in Maryland, was incensed by Columbine and helped invent the active shooter tactics used today.
We have to go where we hear the sounds of shots. We have to go where the broken glass is, where we see the casings on the ground. But we need to corner that threat so that individual or individuals cannot take more life.
Now the mindset is, in the minds of the police, not one more victim.
Exactly.
After Columbine, police operations were transformed. By 2007, Virginia Tech police were trained to go straight toward the gunfire. Just this week, police used the same no-wait procedures at the mall shooting in Oregon. Under the rules, when the shooter has been stopped, then the rescue begins. Some of the Sandy Hook surviving children were led away in an organized line, each one grasping the shoulders of the child in front, their faces revealing both relief and fear.
Our main objective was to evacuate as quickly and efficiently as possible any and all students and faculty in the school.
This go-first tactic is now so ingrained in the police, it's become standard training. But Scott, when police train, they're told to expect this at perhaps a mall, maybe even a high school. They do not expect to go to a grade school.
Wyatt, thank you. We'll have an update on the shooting in just a moment. Back now from Newtown, Connecticut. According to state records, the 3 guns recovered in today's shooting were bought legally and were registered to the gunman's mother. Police say Adam Lanza killed 26 people at Sandy Hook Elementary School, 20 of them children, as young as 5. It is the second deadliest school shooting in American history after Virginia Tech, and by far the worst at an elementary school. Lanza, who was 20, was the son of a kindergarten teacher working at the school. Some of her students are among the dead, and she was found dead in her home earlier today nearby. The police say that Adam Lanza committed suicide in the school. Police are still trying to determine a motive for the shootings. Parents often try to shield their children from tragedies such as this, protect them from the frightening images. But with the pictures all over TV, it can be hard. Seeing the scenes of horror at school, very much like theirs, can be traumatic, and parents do need to talk about it with their children. Dr. John LaPook is with us now, and John, you wonder, how do you start that conversation with a child?
Scott, the first thing is parents have to acknowledge it happened. Yes, a terrible thing happened, but for you, the world is still a safe place. Your school is still a safe place. And parents have to understand that depending on the developmental stage of their kid, they may have a different response. So a young child may be anxious. A teenage boy may have bravado. If I had a gun, I would have just blown him away. Throughout it all, they have to keep the lines of communication open, and they have to, most of all, stay calm.
What should parents be doing this weekend?
Scott, it's so important to maintain a sense of routine and to show the children that the world has not fallen apart. So whatever they were going to do, they should still do. If they were going to go to a movie, that's okay. If they're going to do exercise, that's fine. The one thing they probably should not do is children should not watch TV. They don't need to see all those images over and over again, especially if their parents aren't around to help interpret them.
And what about the long run?
Scott, communication is the most important thing. People talk about talking to your children. The most important thing is to listen to them. And nobody's going to know your kids better than you. Look out for those special little signs. Is there a personality change? Is there anxiety? Is there a problem sleeping? If you notice any of these things, you may need to have some professional help.
John, thanks very much. A program note for you now. CBS News will bring you a special broadcast with the very latest on the shooting here in Connecticut. That will be tonight at 10, 9 Central. Some CBS stations will be leaving now for local programming, but for many of you, the CBS Evening News will continue in just a moment.
There's 20 parents that were just told that their children are dead. It was awful.
Excuse me, folks, I gotta get out.
I saw some of the bullets going past the hall. Then a teacher pulled me into her classroom.
I just heard the principal was shot and killed. I heard some kids were shot.
Good evening again, and for those of you just joining us, this is a special expanded edition, part of CBS coverage of the school shooting here in Newtown, Connecticut, a town about 60 miles northeast of New York City. The death toll at the Sandy Hook Elementary School stands at 26, including 20 children, some of them kindergartners, and the principal of the school was killed as well. The gunman, 20-year-old Adam Lanza, armed with 2 handguns, opened fire in the kindergarten classroom where his mother was a teacher. Her body was found later at her home. After the shootings, the police say Adam Lanza took his own life at the school. Jim Axelrod tells us how it all unfolded. Jim?
Well, Scott, it was just after 9 o'clock this morning at the Sandy Hook Elementary School, which is right down the road here, a kindergarten through 4th grade school. So early, the kids were still delivering their attendance lists from their classrooms to the main office. As we say, a little after 9 o'clock, the gunman apparently walked into the school and started shooting. Police got 911 calls, and kids could hear screaming coming over the intercom. The school was quickly placed on lockdown, teachers locking doors, pulling shades, keeping kids away from windows and doors. The shooting was apparently contained to 2 rooms, a day of unimaginable horror here.
The gym teachers directed us to stay against the wall, and everybody started kind of panicking.
There's most of the lights off, and teacher had, my teacher, Mrs. Sullivan, she had to close the blinds, and she had to, when she closed the blinds, she had to shut off the lights and get a black piece of paper and stick it to the door.
Police led kids away from the scene. Some of the children were told to close their eyes so they wouldn't see the carnage. The gunman was found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot, but then came the agonizing process, Scott, of parents rushing to the school. Many told that their children were safe, but of course for the parents of 20 children, the unspeakably horrifying word that their kids were among the victims.
Jim, thanks very much. Police have not said anything about a possible motive in the case. Bob Orr has been talking to his sources and has learned more. Bob?
Well, Scott, it's clear to us now that the gunman carefully planned his deadly attack for a very familiar target. As we've reported, his mother was a kindergarten teacher at Sandy Hook Elementary, so he knew his way around the target zone. Now, investigators believe the spree actually began earlier in the day at the home that Adam Lanza shared with his mother. Sources say she was killed there. Then Lanza drove to the school armed with at least 3 weapons. We're told he was carrying a Sig Sauer semi-automatic pistol and also a 9mm Glock handgun. He went directly to a very specific area of the school. He opened fire, killing 20 kids in 2 nearby classrooms. We still don't know how many rounds he fired, but the handguns are capable of carrying extended magazines, which can each hold up to 30 rounds of ammunition. Now, also, police found later a 3rd gun, a Bushmaster Type .223 assault rifle that was in his mother's car, which was parked outside the school. And sources now tell us tonight that all 3 of those weapons had been bought legally, and they were registered to Lanza's mother. Also, investigators have been spending hours now with Lanza's older brother, Ryan, to see what he might have known about the attack. At this point, though, Ryan Lanza is not believed to be a suspect. And as for that motive, that's still unclear. The theory is it might have been that Adam Lanza thought he was righting some kind of wrong in his mind, or maybe some slight, Scott, that he felt he'd suffered in the past.
Bob, thank you. CBS News senior correspondent John Miller is a former assistant director of the FBI, and John has been talking to his law enforcement sources. John, how do the police deal with what has become such a large crime scene?
Well, it's going to be very difficult, Scott, and they have competing pressures. First of all, with the crime scene, you only have one chance. You have to get it right the first time. They have a large number of bodies to deal with the people who were killed on the scene, but also a large amount of ballistic evidence to preserve and document there. But the competing pressure, which is one that's going to weigh very heavily, is these victims' families are going to want them back. They're going to want to start to have their arrangements and do things, and particularly the fact that it's children is going to increase that pressure. So they are developing a crime scene plan that is going to run through the weekend, likely 24 hours a day, with crime scene experts in shifts until this scene is complete, Scott.
I spoke to one of the police officers this evening, John, and he told me that they hope to have the bodies out of the school sometime in the overnight period, but they had to remain in place while they gathered that evidence that you were talking about. What have you been able to learn about the gunman? What do we know about Lanza now?
Well, Adam Lanza is 20 years old, born April 22nd, 1997. He was the bigger personality of the 2 brothers. His brother, Ryan, was the quiet one. He went to business school. He was kind of on a path. But Adam was the one with the bigger personality and lived at home with his mother. What investigators say is that this may be part of a conflict between he and his mother that was developing for a long time, that started with the murder this morning, and then using the guns registered to her after killing his mother, going to the school and killing what she loved most, her students. They underline that when you look at what was done and how it was carried out, that this was not a snap decision. This was something he had planned for some time. These were not random victims. He had chosen these victims carefully, and that this was something that he had been putting together.
John, thank you. One of the very first reporters on the scene today was Lou Young from our New York flagship station, WCBS TV. Lou, tell us what you saw and what you heard when you first got here.
Well, Scott, when we got here, we knew it was bad, and then as the day unfolded, it became so much worse, so much more horrifying than any of us could have possibly imagined. The numbers literally taking our breath away as we learned the number of people who were killed and wounded. It was a day of heartbreak. The road behind me here, a very long walk for many parents and friends, frantic, going down that street with a lump in their throat, and for some of them, it was the worst walk of their lives. They simply got the worst news possible when they got down to the end there. It was especially difficult for first responders we met, like a nurse along the road here who rushed to the school to try and help, only to see all her hope turn to despair. Listen.
I see you've been crying.
Yes.
Is it because of what you saw?
No, they wouldn't even let us in the building. All I can say is that one of the cops said it's, the worst thing he'd ever seen in his entire career. But it was when they told the parents, all these parents were waiting for their children to come out. They thought that they were, still alive. There's 20 parents that were just told that their children are dead. It was awful.
And you were unable to do anything. You wanted to come down and help.
Right. We knew at one point they asked the ambulances to leave, that they didn't need them, and we knew that that wasn't a good sign.
The signs were not good, and they never got any better. Even as the sun went down tonight, we saw one woman coming back from the staging area over there, tears streaming down her face. She was checking on a missing child. They're all dead, she said. They're all dead. We're here in Newtown.
Lou, thanks very much. Paul Vance is a police lieutenant with the Connecticut State Police. He's been briefing reporters today, and I asked him what he saw when he arrived at the school.
It's a horrific scene. It's a very tragic scene. As we've been reporting, it involved the death of numerous children, 20 to be exact, 6 adults, and it's a very tragic, horrific scene.
Were the children who were killed in one classroom, spread out across the entire school? What is
one section of the building is the best way we can explain it. The deceased were all located in one complete section of the building.
And where was the gunman found?
In the hallway.
Outside a classroom?
Correct.
As the sun is going down now, are the victims still in the school?
Yeah, this is a long process, and by that I mean it's a crime scene, it's a criminal investigation. It mandates that we meticulously document every single square inch of that building. We meticulously document all the facts and circumstances, and that's time consuming. We will then work with the medical examiner for removal of the deceased and initiate that process. And we certainly have a great deal of work that needs to be done in this investigation.
Paul Vance with the Connecticut State Police. I asked Officer Vance whether any family lost more than one child, and he said that they were not certain of that at this point. They just didn't know. President Obama at the White House today was visibly shaken when he came out to address the nation, and we will have more of the president's remarks when this special coverage of the CBS Evening News returns from Newtown, Connecticut. When President Obama addressed the nation about the shooting, he seemed visibly upset at the White House today.
They had their entire lives ahead of them. Birthdays, graduations, weddings, kids of their own. Among the fallen were also teachers, men and women who devoted their lives to helping our children fulfill their dreams. So our hearts are broken today for the parents and grandparents, sisters and brothers of these little children, and for the families of the adults who were lost. Our hearts are broken for the parents of the survivors as well. For as blessed as they are to have their children home tonight, they know that their children's innocence has been torn away from them too early, and there are no words that will ease their pain. As a country, we have been through this too many times. Whether it's an elementary school in Newton, or a shopping mall in Oregon, or a temple in Wisconsin, or a movie theater in Aurora, or a street corner in Chicago, these neighborhoods are our neighborhoods, and these children are our children. And we're going to have to come together and take meaningful action to prevent more tragedies like this, regardless of the politics.
The president was no more specific about what he meant by meaningful action, but for some Americans, it means taking a look at gun control. Correspondent Nancy Cordes tells us that the issue is just as contentious as ever.
In Lafayette Park tonight, across from the White House, a small group of pro-gun control demonstrators held a candlelight vigil. But on both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue, there was near silence on the issue. Both the Republican House Speaker, John Boehner, and the Democratic leader, Nancy Pelosi, called today's tragedy unspeakable, but made no mention of the guns used to carry out the brutal act. Gun control, an issue so hotly debated in the 1990s, is rarely discussed seriously today. The ban on assault weapons was allowed to lapse in 2004. In 2009, Congress passed a law making it easier to carry guns in national parks, and the president signed it. After July's massacre in Aurora, Colorado, President Obama said AK-47s belong in the hands of soldiers, not criminals. But he did not propose any gun legislation, and that allowed Speaker Boehner to duck the issue, too.
I don't know. I'm not the expert on this, but if the president's got ideas, I'd be happy to look at them.
New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg blasted both men today. "We need immediate action," wrote the gun control advocate. "We have heard all the rhetoric before. What we have not seen is leadership, not from the White House and not from Congress."
One of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to gun control is that Democrats are on one side and Republicans are on the other. But there are plenty of Democrats from rural states, from southern states, from western states, Scott, that also balk at gun control measures. We asked the National Rifle Association for a reaction to today's shooting, Scott. They said they'll have no comment until all the facts are known.
Nancy, what we do know is that the weapons were legally purchased and legally registered. One wonders if the nature of this crime and the age of the victims might create the debate in Washington that could push legislation along.
It's possible, but many people thought that would happen after the shootings in Aurora, Colorado this summer, after Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords was shot along with so many others more than a year ago. But that didn't happen. In fact, congressional leaders today and the president were so reluctant to bring up this issue that their aides said today was not the day to discuss it. That infuriated gun control advocates, Scott, who said, if today isn't the day, what is?
Nancy, thanks very much. Today's shooting in Connecticut is painfully familiar to people in Littleton, Colorado. Their story is next. One of the parents of a Sandy Hook elementary student said today that he always thought Newtown, Connecticut was the safest place in America. Folks in Littleton, Colorado once thought the same about their town. Until the shooting at Columbine. 13 years later, Barry Peterson reports the wounds there have still not healed.
It was April 20th, 1999. Two heavily armed Columbine students walked into their school and opened fire. They killed 12 students and 1 teacher before killing themselves. Have you ever actually recovered from this?
No. I mean,
Still haunts you.
Yeah, it does.
Frank DeAngelis was the principal that day, as he is today, at Columbine. What went through your mind when you heard about what happened in Connecticut? You've been there.
I was in a state of shock. Immediately, my heart was just broken and kind of nauseous, to be honest with you.
His first thoughts were of the agonizing moments as the news spread.
The thing that weighs on my mind is when parents are waiting in a room and students are not coming to them as other parents had received their kids. And I'm sure every parent who was in Connecticut today, when they heard the news, were wondering if their child was in that classroom.
Feelings that flooded back this year with the shooting at a theater in Aurora, Colorado, about 20 miles east of Columbine High. In the years that you've thought about it, have you ever put it kind of together?
I think the question that I get asked when I do go out and speak on occasions is, what could stop it from happening? And the thing that I keep stating time and time again is what causes so much hate in people's heart that they're willing to walk into an elementary school to injure or kill kids. Where did this start?
And he has one plea from a teacher who lived through it.
Don't allow these people to die in vain. Violence has to stop in our schools. We have to come together.
DeAngelis and others here at Columbine High School say, you don't get over this kind of tragedy, Scott. The scars are forever.
You know, Barry, we were talking to Nancy Cordes earlier. I was wondering, is there any talk in Colorado about changing gun laws there?
Indeed, if you look at this morning's Denver Post, the headline is about Colorado's Governor John Hickenlooper, who says maybe it is time to rethink gun laws. Now, he said this, Scott, before today's events and in reference to the Aurora Theater massacre. But when you have a Western governor who says something like this, it's going to add fuel to the whole gun control debate.
Barry, thanks very much. Here in Newtown, the community tonight is remembering the victims of the deadly shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School. A candlelight vigil is being held at St. Rose's Catholic Church to begin the healing process. Some of the victims were part of the congregation there, we're told. We'll have an update on the shooting in just a moment. We're back now from Newtown, Connecticut. President Obama, speaking for the nation about what happened here today, said, "Our hearts are broken." A gunman killed 20 children, some as young as 5. 6 adults were also killed. The gunman, identified as 20-year-old Adam Lanza, opened fire in a kindergarten classroom where his mother was a teacher. Police say he then committed suicide. His mother's body was later found in her home. We had planned to end the week with one of those wonderful stories from Steve Hartman about a 3rd grader in Denver who is fascinated by dinosaurs, a little kid with big dreams, just like the children who died today. Steve, the father of a 4-year-old, has some thoughts tonight about this tragedy.
I haven't been able to watch the news most of today, let alone prepare something to say on it. So forgive me if I'm a little shaken tonight. For me, it's those pictures of the kids coming out of the school in tears. Those have been just doing me in. I feel empathy, of course, but I've got to be honest with you. Most of what I've been feeling today is selfish. What if those were my kids? Could this happen at their school? I'm comfortable confessing this because I'm guessing a lot of you have been feeling that same way too. And if you are like me, then you know there's only one place to find solace.
This is my son, George. This was the smile he gave me when I picked him up from school today. On the way home, we got stuck behind a bus. And although normally I hate that, stopping all the time, today there was no place on earth I would have rather been. I really needed to see this. And judging from some of the hugs I witnessed, I'm pretty sure I wasn't alone in that.
Last thing I want to say. My wife sometimes gives me a hard time because I like to fall asleep with my boys on occasion. She says they don't sleep as well when I'm in there. Well, tonight, rest assured, I'm going to be in there.
And that's the CBS Evening News for tonight. We'll be back at 10, 9 Central with a CBS News special with the very latest on the shooting. Until then, for all of us at CBS News all around the world, I'm Scott Pelley in Newtown, Connecticut. Good night.